Tonight, we will be delving into some of the issues pertaining to food scarcity in Nigeria and food security. There are a lot of measures that the president has promised that he will take to ensure that Nigerians not only get food and some major food items by setting up a lot of strategies and ensuring that we have good harvests such that farmers can be able to produce locally and that we will reduce the dependence on importation of food. First, we need to be able to provide the basic food that we eat as a nation. That is what the president says is one of his major agenda when he got into office. But has that been done? You look at the prices of commodities, prices of food, basic food items, from tomato to rice to gari and maize and whatever you're mentioning. You look at the prices astronomically gone up compared to what you saw before President Bola Tinubu got into office. But where are we headed as a people tonight? I'll be speaking with the Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Senator Shabi Abdullahi, who is live for us here in our Abuja studio. It's a pleasure having you join us on the program.
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me.
Thank you so much indeed.
And let me say Happy New Year.
Yes, I mean, if you see, even if it's in June of this year, it still could be Happy New Year. Yeah. But thank you so much indeed. Let's get straight to it. It's concerning though, and I'm sure that you are as well worried. As a former senator, you are closer to the people, and you can feel the pain of the people when what they used to buy before President Bola Tinubu got into office, now the prices have gone astronomical high. And in the years that we cannot remember, this is the first time we're seeing prices of food or food inflation gotten to this point. It is alarming, isn't it? And it's worrisome. And is the president bothered that the average Nigerian citizen may not even be able to afford to buy food for themselves?
Well, thank you, Sean. And I think what you have just said requires that we put certain context if we are to properly understand the subject of our discussion. First, are we saying that change is not inevitable? In life, change is inevitable, is the constant. And you see, for you to say things were this way before the coming of a president, to me, is uncharitable, because we knew this country when you were buying Volkswagen at a particular price, car at a particular price, and those prices today cannot even buy the wheel of a bicycle. So I think we should not use this kind of analogy to situate our case. But maybe let me react to the headline I saw you talking about, risk of food scarcity. Nigeria is not in risk of food scarcity. It has not been and will never be, by the grace of God.
So what
I want to say here is that when you say scarcity, it means it's not even available. Nigeria has not suffered from that. But what has happened is that there are dynamics. The economics around food goes beyond just the immediate sector. There are macroeconomic issues. And I think Mr. President fully understands this. And that also speaks volume to why, upon assumption of office, as early as July, he resumed office in May. But by July, he has already declared a state of emergency on food security. And by the time the 8-point agenda was reeled out, food security was in the front burner. So I think saying that maybe is Mr. President concerned? Yes, Mr. President is deeply concerned. And he has shown his concern in terms of the measures he has put in place, both within the sector and also within what I will call the entire economy, which I will talk to in each of these, bifurcation I've mentioned.
So, thank you so much, Minister, for trying to clarify some of the worries. If it's not concerning for if any leader is not worried about...
I never said he's not concerned.
Yeah, no, I'm driving somewhere.
So
I'm saying if any leader is not worried about whether or not a citizen can feed themselves, that means the leader is not responsible. But now that you have told us that the president is worried, is concerned, and you that you are in charge of some of these duties are also looking into ensuring that the disaster that was looming is averted. Let's get into it. And we'll get in somewhere. You remember in this country that there was flooding that destroyed farmlands in Kogi, Benue, and in Nasarawa, and we saw what that did to us. In this country, we know how much of Indonesian rice that we were importing. At some point, when a government in this country said, "No more, we need to reduce and cut that," most of the rice getting their way in and out of the country, and we do know what some of these illegal, our borders, our porous border, what they've cost us in terms of food security in Nigeria. There are those who will say we have the capacity to be able to produce the kind of food that we eat. But the big question is, are we organized enough, considering the public sector effort and the private sector effort, to be able to organize ourselves and galvanize the nation in producing what it can feed on? And I remind you, Minister, because facts are sacred.
Yeah.
A bag of rice before this government got into office about 95,000 naira. That's February in 20. Let me not even go back as 2023. Let me go into 2024. 95,000 of February 2024. You know what a bag of rice costs right now. A loaf of bread in February of 2024 is about 1,500. A tuber of yam in February 2024. No, you know, because you are the Minister of Food in charge of that. Tuber of yam, 7,500. A crate of egg, February, 4,500 naira in February 2024. One bag of pepper, February 2024, 85,000 naira. One bag of beans, February 2024, 80,000. And if you look at all of these prices, food inflation is perhaps one of the most worrisome trend in all of the types of inflation that we have in this country. So one, we can be able to say that things were not the way they used to be. Things skyrocketed based on the decision of this government. First and foremost was how to stem the tide of the rising price. So what have you done, Minister, to ensure that you tame food inflation?
Well, you painted a picture. And before I tell you what we have done, I think I have to go back to that picture.
Okay.
When you said decisions by this administration, you see, the president made a situation that requires that he should be bold as a leader, he should be courageous as a leader, he should be passionate, patriotic, and also compassionate. And when I say compassionate, I will make an analogy for you. I'm a veterinarian. And whenever you want to do what they call surgery, it means you want to heal that animal. If it's a human being, the medical doctor wants to heal. But will he spare the knife? No. He has to put in the knife, get to the problem, and resolve it. All of us were witness to the campaign trail, and you played a very prominent role in bringing all the gladiators. All of them said, including the civil society, NGOs, people who are speaking, that one canker one in Nigeria was fuel subsidy. And everybody promised he was going to remove fuel subsidy. And by the time the president came on board, it was quite obvious that fuel subsidy has to give way. And of course, from that period to now, it has reset our mindset as a nation. And of course, the rehabilitation of the refineries and all those other decisions are now receiving full throttle attention. So that is a context we need to put in place. And I'm convinced beyond reasonable doubt that the pains that this thing has engendered is not unknown to Mr. President. He's fully aware, he is concerned, and that is why he's working together with the economic team to see that we try to reverse this trend. So within that context, one of the things we need to do is the aspect of food, like you have said. Because Mr. President said his vision is a Nigeria where no one goes to bed hungry. But right now, there are challenges. But if you have a vision, then you are walking your path towards that vision. And that's what we are doing. Now, you recall when we came on board, the 2023-2024 dry season farming. We did what has never been done before. Wheat farming was weak, and Mr. President intervened through the National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro Pocket Project, and were able to cultivate 118,000 hectares of wheat spread across 11 wheat producing states. And by the time you juxtapose this with some of the private sector participation, Flour Mills of Nigeria, some private individuals, we knew the figure was more than that. But based on our programming, it was 120 target, and we were able to do 118, about 700 a day about. Meaning we were able to inject more than 500,000 metric tons of wheat into the economy. That was significant because it never happened before. Now, we continued this in terms of rice production, and right now as we speak, this is February, the current 2024-2025 wheat season is in place. And just yesterday, my brother and colleague, Senator Obaka Kyari, came from Jigawa. He was in Jigawa State in collaboration with the Flour Mills of Nigeria and the Jigawa State government. There was a green day yesterday to show what is being done in the wheat field. That is the kind of interjection or intervention that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has brought onto the table. And you see, when you say wheat, why is wheat significant? All the quick fix food that we take are produced from wheat. So that is significant as far as food security is concerned. Now, are we stopping there? No. We also have the rice, which is one of the dry season, crop also. That is currently in the way. And the program is also currently now making arrangement to start distributing. I think they've started in some places because, the season is a bit different for some different areas. But that is in the works.
Sure.
And so, apart from that, let me say this.
Just for a moment, Mr.
No, just let me land on this because it's very important. Why are we doing this? Because before now, when we do wet season, everybody goes home. The dry season is just for festivities. But now we are saying we are introducing a back-to-back. The 12-month calendar is full of farming activities all year round. That is the way to go, and that is the way this administration is taking it.
Minister, you have the data about, correct me if my data is not as relevant as you have it in the public sector and the ministry, but what is out there is that about 6.7 million metric tons of rice is what Nigeria consumes annually. And rice is perhaps the most popular and most consumed staple food in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Out of the 6.7 million metric tons, it is seen as the fact that Nigeria has a deficit of about 3 million metric tons annually in terms of producing what we eat or what we consume.
For rice?
It's been said for rice, we said to have been to be producing about 57% of that 6.7 million metric tons that we consume as a people. So with that deficit, the question I'd like to ask, Minister, over the last 1 year, how much of rice production specifically has Nigeria been able to produce?
Well, I like to speak the truth. And if I give you a specific figure now, I'll be lying. But I want to make a pledge to you that based on what I know, we have gone very far in meeting our demands in this country. Because the local rice that is being produced is sufficient. Because we are not just producing for rainy season, we are producing during the dry season. And this effort has been stepped up.
Are you saying, so if we are consuming 6.7, that means you are...
well, I don't know where you are quoting this figure from, but I know we have a figure, and on the basis of that figure, as far as rice is concerned,
that we are self-sufficient.
We have gone beyond this particular figure you are talking about.
That we are self-sufficient.
Yes, but what has happened is the fact that our taste board has preference for imported one based on the processing. But that is changing in the sense that many people are now at home more with the local rice that is being produced, because we now have grown the number of feed mills, rice mills that are actually processing Nigerian rice.
So I'd like to take you up quickly on that. I mean, I'd like to know what government figures are right now, because it's a popular, just like the consumption of oil. And the debate when you were senator, when we talk about the consumption of fuel daily, there's been a lot of disparity. Government will say, absolutely, this is what we consume. There are those who say, no, we never are able to consume that amount of 6.7 million, or in the average about 6 million metric tons of rice is what Nigeria is said to consume. But Minister,
unfortunately, if I had come in with my phone, I would have quickly checked the data.
Okay. Right. It's okay if you can get back to us on those things, because it's going to be important.
But let me make this clarification.
We want to be food sufficient.
Yes, but let me make this clarification. You see, let us not forget, Nigeria has 6 agroecologies. Each of these agroecologies, we have facts that shows clearly that there are preferences in terms of their food choices. But one thing that is certain is that we also know crops or commodities that are across board, from Lagos to Kano to Maiduguri, all across. You see, when you talk about wheat, when you talk about rice, when you talk about maize, when you talk about cowpea, this crops, for example, and you may add yam and even cassava or cassava products. All of these commodities are significant across the agroecologies in different categories. So what we have done is, in terms of our priority, we have prioritized all of these, our food security crops, as what we are focusing on. The next AP is clearly on that track. Our programming in the ministry are clearly on that track.
Let me quickly jump in. Part of the immediate measure that the president came when he announced that it declared a state of emergency on food production in Nigeria, and he says that immediately there's going to be a lift tariff on imported food, food items in Nigeria. And I have a feeling that that policy is still in place, isn't it? That tariff is still taking off some food items. Is that right?
Yes.
So the question is that we still have a lot of food items, and the president also muted the fact that we are going to be importing some food. How much of that have we imported?
Well, I think let's not forget the seasonality in production means that you have period where there is abundance and prices will come down, and as the supply begins to thin out, prices may begin to move. But what we are trying to do is that sharp rise that we witness, occasioned by the flood you talked about, occasioned by the Russia-Ukraine war, which caught everybody off guard in terms of, oh, this is where we're getting our supplies and everybody has relaxed. All of those issues were contributing factor to that spike that was witnessed. But nations, including Nigeria, have adjusted. And Nigeria has adjusted to the fact that we need to do back-to-back production of our major commodities, and that is happening. We need to increase the productivity of our farmers by bringing in mechanization. And we have 4 mechanization programs that are in the works. Delivery of some of these equipments have started. We are partnering in terms of all of this with the subnationals. And states like Niger, states like Kebbi, states like Kaduna. I just came back from Kaduna on Saturday, where the governor flagged off the dry season farming. That never happened before. States like Jigawa, I told you the minister came back from Jigawa yesterday to witness the Green Day. States like Kebbi has distributed thousands of solar-powered irrigation pumps, just like Kaduna did on Saturday. And Jigawa already is using all of those. What are we doing? We are trying to ramp up production in our core production site, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to increase the level of productivity.
So the question I was asking, Minister, and I don't want us to lose track of it, the importation the president talked about of some grains.
Yes.
How much of that did we get?
Okay, let me say this. That was made as a stopgap policy intervention, that in case, if we are going to see a leaning, so that we don't end up with another spike, we are going to allow importation. But those importation had certain provisions. It must be people who are already into that commodity.
So federal government did not import.
Federal government
specifically.
It did not import.
But it allowed importation.
Yes, for some people.
Is that policy window still open of lifting of tariff of some food items?
Well, the lifting of tariff was to allow certain food items that we are not producing to be able to be affordable to our citizens. But the one you were talking about, that an importation window was allowed, was for the major commodities. And I think that was last year, if you remember. And it was a window. And yet, we got to December with some element of stability. And with the harvest coming out, prices begin to
So let me ask specifically, Minister, with the experience that we have, we do know that there was some crisis in some of our silos, right? Last year, when we got there and some people went into those silos and were looting them. And these are supposed to be for emergency purposes.
No. None of our silos was.
Did NEMA report that to you?
None of our silos was looted.
In the north, there were.
I want you to know one thing.
Okay.
State governors also had things they have kept. All our silos were safe, and it was from those silos that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu directed that we release some, grains to states, and that was done, which was handled by NEMA. But those ones that happened during the crisis, they were not our silos.
So let's ask, how many silos do we have?
We have like about 33 silos. Some has been concession, some are uncompleted, but overall, the ones that are within the ambit of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security are about 11.
How much of food storage do you think we have in this country that can give that guarantee that Nigeria has?
I need you to know, when it comes to that, it's a national security matter. You don't just come out and tell the public this is what you have in your storage. So
would you say that, and I understand, because food production, just like the military, is like securing, like energy, is the strength and the energy of your government and the nation. But the big question that I like Nigerians to know tonight is whether or not we have what it takes shored up in our storages, food that can sustain this country.
All right. Let's look at it this way. Don't focus your mind on the strategic reserve. If you want to answer that question, I want you to know that when farmers produce, they have their stock where they take out of it to sell as at when they need resources to take care of one or two problems. That is also there, which we call on-farm storage or family level or farm state level storage. State governments are supposed to have buffer stock. And I want to guarantee you that a number of states have taken the buffer stock strategy and have stocked in food as their buffer. Then you have the strategic food reserve, which is what is done at the federal level. The whole idea is that you must have a strategy around which you want to guarantee that when the lean period is coming in, you do some strategic release to keep the supply in such a manner that the prices does not crash beyond the level in which the farmer will be discouraged to go back to farm, or it will be so high that citizens will not be able to afford. That balancing act is what is being done. And I want to tell you for the first time that I have it on good authority, a number of state governments have also gone into that. But you see, like I continue to say, there is security implication on some of these things. You just talk about looting. And this looting could just be by eggs. So when you spill these things out, you are giving room for some people to want to sabotage national effort.
So the question here is that Nigeria is food sufficient as of today.
Well, you don't say Nigeria is food sufficient, but Nigeria is not in food crisis.
But we're not food sufficient.
We may not. In terms of your own definition?
No. I'm talking about reality.
As far as I'm concerned, what I know is
as a government,
I can say that if you go to any market, whatever food you want is available.
In that sense, would you say as a minister that we are food sufficient?
To that extent, we are sufficient because reason, both what we produce and what is brought in as imports It's what is available for us.
So how do you then deal, because the question will be whether or not the emergency declaration on food in Nigeria by the president, whether it's working or not, and the food inflation matter is still of major concern. How are you dropping the price or ensuring that price, I mean, I don't know whether price control will help the situation, but the prices are killing.
Well, as it is now, you know, if you look at it, you need to be fair to this government that the price we had some months back are not the price we are having today. Just yesterday, Punch newspaper did some spotting using Kano. And Kano is more or less like the heartbeat of the food supply chain. Anything you see from Kano reverberates across the other, production site, or is it supply site? And they reported yesterday that prices have dropped. Now, those prices, have they dropped to the level that we want? No. If it's our wish, we want it to go down further. And that is what we are working on, to make sure that the prices continue to go down to a level that Nigerians can afford. Now, one thing we should not forget is this. For you to have your own internal production supplemented by import is what gives you your food self-sufficiency. And I think within that context, Nigeria is stable. Now, when you are not able to have imports, you are not able to produce enough to match, then there will be supply gap. And if that supply gap persists, then you will be in a very precarious situation.
Minister, you're trying to be a politician.
I'm not a politician.
You're trying to be tonight. The question I'm trying to ask you is whether Nigerians can go to bed believing, thinking, and having the fact that Nigeria does not have a food problem. The president declared it that we have a food problem.
One thing. Yes,
a food production problem.
You are not getting the point.
Yes. That's why I say you're trying to dance around the answer, Minister. You're trying to be a politician, right?
No.
The question is that
you don't do politics with food.
Prices of food are high. Whether or not we find the food in the market is another ballgame entirely. But the prices don't reflect it.
Let's get it clear. We don't play politics with food. We are speaking reality here. Are we saying that the prices of our commodity is not dropping?
Are they dropping?
It has dropped.
Give me 2 examples, Minister.
Yesterday, there was a report. And like I said, we are on national television. If I want to quote, I should quote straight. Facts that have been there. But yesterday, it was the Punch headline. And it was there out, based on what they did in Kano. If you want, if you have a break interlude, I can get my phone and read out those prices for you. But what I'm saying to you here is this. Because we are working around the clock to see that we stabilize the situation, we don't want to go back to that precarious situation where we are coming from. But you have to appreciate that we are coming from where it is bad. And we have moved away from that bad situation into a stable situation. We want to improve it to an excellent situation because the president said he wants a Nigeria where no one goes to bed hungry. That Nigeria will be a Nigeria where food is available, is accessible, and is affordable.
Minister, on the final note, so we wrap up quickly. Under this Tinubu government, and in you and Senator Kiari, interestingly, the only ministry that has 2 senators in that office, which food item can this government boast that it can be signaled or tagged as? And I give an example. If you hear Ivory Coast, you might almost want to think about cocoa. If you hear Russia, another country as that, you might want to think about a food item. What food item would you say Nigeria would be known to have to be a producer of?
That's number one. We are number 1 cassava producers. Nigeria remains the global number 1 producer of cassava.
As a subsistence farmer.
And I want to tell you one thing.
In the subsistence way.
Whichever way, because there are a lot of big players in the cassava value chain. Big farms using machineries, using
processing of cassava can give you ethanol.
Yes.
But how much of ethanol
do
we give to the rest of the world?
That's what I want to answer. Until now, when we came on board, we realized that we had root and tuber expansion program. And that program took us into this level of expansion where we are the world number 1. But we now checked, are we there in the market globally? We realized we are not. So right now we have designed a program called Root and Tuber Industry and Export Development Program. under the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And we are working very hard on that so that we will be able to tap into the global market based on the high level of cassava that is being produced. Some of our cassava farmers are losing because market is the key driver of production.
So Nigeria should, under Bola Tinubu, should be known for cassava production.
It's not a bad idea, and I think Nigerians should take it on because we have the highest volume of cassava production in the world, and we should be able to process it into the various products so that we'll be able to tap in while also meeting the local, demand of our gari.
Which is also very important, especially when you put some sugar and milk. Except that light is not very stable these days, so you could have very cold ice block water in it with some in your area. You're a big man. No, it depends on where you live.
You are living in
you put coconut, or you put granite, or whatever you may have. Gari is very interesting. Some of us had gari growing up without sugar. We couldn't afford.
So maybe let me make this party short, please. Let me say this, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President and Commander-in-Chief, is deeply concerned and is working to ensure that we reverse not just the current food inflation, but to transform the food system into a stable one where every Nigeria can eat the kind of food he has. Our agroecology is diverse. Our commodity that we can produce for food is diverse. The 6 geopolitical zones, different food choices are there, and the Nigerian food is one in which we also want to anchor on a very solid
like they say in the local parlance, show workings. We want to see the food.
Yes.
We want to see the price come.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Minister.
And I will invite you to see what we're doing as we're unveiling some of these things, especially this year.
I appreciate it. Senator Shabi Abdullah is the Honorable Minister for State for Agriculture. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it. And I wish you guys the very best of luck.
Thank you
very much. We are going into the new year. We should see more harvest, and the Tinubu government should show workings in terms of the harvest. Let's get our hands dirty.
We will start harvest in April.
Oh,
join us.